Welcome to Azeroth United, a weekly podcast about World of Warcraft. My name is Denethar, and I am your host.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's Monday night in Azeroth, and we have a great show lined up for you. We're going to be talking about Classic Plus, which is a topic that I like to frequently bring up, and not because I feel like it's so relevant right now, but it's something I do feel very passionately about. And it's something that I've been going over a lot of the information that we have, and I think I kind of have a wrap around what's going on, although reality is nobody knows anything except for Blizzard, and they're not telling. So I'm going to give my kind of current takes on where things are. I think I know what they're up to, though. And then the other thing is obviously the debacle of the 12.0.5 rollout on midnight, how it was received by the player base, how Blizzard responded. We're going to talk about all that because it's super relevant right now. So it's a little bit of a I don't know, little back and forth on the show today, but I think it's important that we talk about all this stuff right now. So yeah, that's what we've got going on, plus all the news and more on Azeroth United tonight. Before I get started on all of the news, I wanted to do a quick rundown of what I got up to last week in WoW. The thing with Burning Crusade is the phases of the content phases are rolled out in a way that's different from how it was done in 2007. So in 2007, when everything launched, pretty much everything was in the game up to, but not including Black Temple. Technically, Mount Hyjal was in the game, although you really couldn't do it because you had to kill Kael'thas and Lady Vosh in order to get attuned. So realistically, it wasn't in the game, but it was technically there. But Serpent Shrine, Tempest Keep, Karazhan, Gruul's Lair, Magtheridon's Lair, that was all available at launch. So you could go do all of it. And it was kind of a weird way of doing things because we had in vanilla, it was Molten Core and Onyxia's Lair, and that was our raids. So this is a lot different, a lot bigger, and it felt weird back in 2007, but now we have these content phases lined up precisely. And so we're nearing the end of phase 1, which means that Karazhan and most of the Magtheridon runs are going to start to disappear and fall into ad hoc runs, pug runs, things like that. But we'll still be running Gruul's Lair because people need DST. It's really the only reason why, because everything else is going to be replaced in phase 2 or tier 5 or however you want to refer to it. So anyway, so we're going through our raid this week, and 25 player raids were fine. We cleared Gruul and Mag, no problem. We got into Karazhan, and I don't know what the deal was. We were just a little off. Before we started, I was like, guys, we're going to burn through this really fast. And we're going to try and do all the way up to Shade on the first night, because we do the 25 player raids and then we switch over to our Karazhan groups. So it does take a little bit of time. So we didn't get going until just after 10. So I thought 2 hours, we should be able to get to Shade. But we did not get to Shade. First, we wiped twice on Maiden, which, that happens. It does. But it's frustrating because it's Maiden. It's like, come on, really? But it's okay. We got through it. And then we wiped twice on Nightbane, which was also really frustrating. And I think that Nightbane is one of those fights where sometimes you're just going to be unlucky. I don't care how well geared you are or how experienced you are. Sometimes luck is not on your side. I don't know what the deal was, but yeah, that happened. And but we got through that too. We got to Curator. We had about 15 minutes left on the raid, and I was like, nope, that's it. We have at least 25 minutes worth of trash before we get to Shade. So we're going to call it here. But it was frustrating because I thought, oh man, we're going to do this. We've got this. That's my goal, is I want to do that before the end of phase 1. So we'll see this week what happens. But yeah, night 2, we went in there. We cleared through Ilhov Shade, Nether Spite, one shot, chess event. We actually one shot chess, which is rare for us. We usually struggle in there. And then Prince Malkasar, obviously that's a one shot. That's like super easy. as far as the end bosses go. It's ridiculous. Although some people contest whether Nightbane or Prince is the end boss of Karazhan. I personally, to me, Prince is the end boss and Nightbane is that, kind of like the optional, what's the, I can't remember the boss from Ulduar, the Celestial. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But Algalon, the Observer. So that's what we did in Raid. It went really well. After Raid on Saturday, we ran over, a group of us ran into Arcatraz, which was really nice. We saved Mill House, so we got that part of the attunement chain done. I still need to do Steam Vault and Shadow Lab. I was going to do them this week, and then I didn't. So there you go. That's my excuse. But I'll get them done in the next day or two. Steam Vault should be pretty easy. Shattered Halls, I'm nervous about, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So that was pretty much it. That was my week. I didn't do a whole lot on the Hunter. I did play the Warrior a bit more. Got him to 65. As I mentioned, I've been going back and forth between Arms and Prot for leveling versus tanking in dungeons, questing or whatever. So, but I just finished up Zangarmarsh, and so it's time to move on to Terrakar and or Nagrand. A bit of back and forth there. But so I was originally like, oh, when I first started playing him, he had mining and skinning. And I thought, that's fine. I'll just hold on to that for a while. And then I thought, no, I'll switch to jewel crafting because I really need gems and the gems are expensive. So I thought, I'll switch to jewel crafting. I didn't do that. And then it got kind of late. And I was like, at this point, it's too late. I'm not going to get any patterns. Everything's so expensive. So I was like, I'll hold on to skinning. So I'm running around skinning and picking up leather, and it just, I don't know, something about it just got me, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this again, especially thinking about going into Grand and having to skin everything. No, I can't. So instead, what I did is I went and I dropped skinning and I picked up enchanting. So as you know, there's a level requirement for disenchanting things. So you start off with level 10 or 12 greens and no problem. You can disenchant all that. But as you level up, it becomes more and more skill required in order to disenchant things. So I got to, about 150 and I was like, well, I'm out of stuff to disenchant. So, I can't disenchant anymore. I need to skill up before I can disenchant more. I think you stop getting skill points around 50. But anyway, what I was thinking is, you have to do enchants in order to scale up so that you can do more enchants. You can disenchant more stuff. It's like a circle. It's designed for you to level it up slowly, not do it in an afternoon. But I did it in an afternoon. So my goal was to get to 275 because that's when I can disenchant all of the stuff from Outland. So I did that. I spent about 250 gold buying enchanting mats and or crafting mats to craft things to disenchant. So I got all that done. Got my enchanting to 275 where it sits now. I can't actually do any of the good enchants because it's my skill is too low, but now I can get my own enchanting mats, which is really nice. So I was able to get some large prismatic shards from a hunter because those are going for about 18 gold each. So I needed to do enchant 2 on a weapon major agility because I got the sonic spear from Shadow Lab. So I got those shards, and so the enchant was essentially free. I had a guildie do it, and so yeah, that was really cool. That felt good because it's like, okay, yes, I haven't made a return on my investment yet, but long term, especially going into phase 2, I'm going to. So there you go. But anyway, yeah, I got him 65. I did a couple of runs in the Slave Pens and Underbog, which was really fun. Slave Pens is okay. Underbog was a lot of fun to tank. I really had a good time on that one. And yeah, that was pretty much the week. I finally, because I spent all that gold on enchanting, I finally bit the bullet and installed TSM, Trade Skill Master, which I'd never used before because I've tried it a few times, but it's so intimidating to set up. And I thought, I'm going to set it up now. I have time Sunday morning. I'm going to set this up. So I started setting it up and I just got super frustrated with it. I was about to remove it and I thought, nope, I'm going to make this work because I hear people talk about how good it is, but it has a very steep learning curve. So I finally got to the point where I can do some basic auction functionality with ease. But I guess the big thing with TSM is you have to build your groups so that you can have different rules for different types of things. Like, all right, I'm going to stack my cloth to 20, but I'm only going to stack my food to 5 or whatever it is. And I want to keep some of these mats in my bags. And here's my here's when I cancel my auctions on this type of item versus that type of item and things like that. So I've got to build all that stuff into it. But yeah, that's where I am now. So I think I already made like 400 or 500 gold off of the stuff that I had sitting around, not auctioning, because auctioning is a pain in the butt on classic servers. So yeah, there you go. That's what I got up to last week. It was not super eventful, but had a lot going on in my own little world. So there you go. Right. That's about it, Fo. So let's move on to the news.
It's time for the news.
In Blizzard news, so there's a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. First off, let's talk about the classic stuff. We'll get that out of the way. As I mentioned, the Phase 2 content will arrive on the Burning Crusade Anniversary servers on May 14th. Blizzard is ending PvP Season 1 on May 4th. May the 4th be with you. So players will have till then to get whatever it is that they're getting out of the arena season, and then the Season 2 will start on May 19th. So that's good. I don't arena. I didn't bother this time around. I hate arena on Burning Crusade. It's not fun. A lot of people really like it, but yeah, that's not for me. So there's an interesting thing that I saw, and this is on Wowhead, but the Swift Spectral Tiger will be on the Chinese Titan Reforged server. So we talked about the Titan Reforged server before. This is the Chinese replacement for Season of Discovery, since they didn't get that. And it's basically vanilla, the Burning Crusade, and Wrath of the Lich King all rolled into one. And Blizzard has been using it as an opportunity to give some cool and interesting and unique items in that version of the game. And so this is one of them. It's a mystery box promotion. You're going to get the Reigns of the Swift Spectral Tiger as an option in there. So yeah, I mean, it's cool for them. I think that Blizzard has already said they're not planning to introduce stuff like this into the retail version of the game, or the modern version of the game, but who knows? If there's money involved, they might just do it. If Blizzard said, hey, you can buy the Swift Spectral Tiger off of the Blizzard store for $50, would you buy it? I think a lot of people probably would. So yeah, there you go. That is now available on the Chinese server. So question being, what else, or where else is it going to show up? Don't know. There's a bunch of other stuff on there too, but the Tiger was the big news. So yeah, there you go. That's what's going on there. Okay. So we're not going to belay this any further. Let's talk about patch 12.0.5. So last week I talked about all the features coming with patch 12.0.5 and how it was a really big patch. And there was a lot going on. Well, apparently it was a little too much for Blizzard to handle. And so there's a lot of news items that we're going to cover here. And so what I did was I went through Wowhead. Thank you to Wowhead for putting all this stuff out there. So I went out to Wowhead, and they have all the different news articles and the date that their article was published. So it's not necessarily when whatever was announced, it's when Wowhead put it on their website, which is usually within a few minutes of Blizzard's announcements. They're pretty quick about it. So the patch released on the 21st of April. And I think servers came up around 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, something like that. So first of all, the first thing that happened was that player housing was disabled. So player housing temporarily disabled in North America region. So basically what happened was, as they were bringing the servers back up, they noticed a critical bug in the housing. It says, during our routine tests with the realms offline to deploy the new patch, we discovered a critical bug in housing that would cause unacceptable errors for some players. Fixing this bug is a top priority for us, and while we work on it, We've decided to open realms on patch 12.0.5 with housing and neighborhood disabled in this region, the Americas and Oceania. Once we have a fix developed and tested, we will perform an additional brief maintenance in this region to bring housing back online for everyone. Thank you very much for your patience and understanding. Okay, you know what? Hey, they found the bug during their testing, which is when they're supposed to, and rather than delay the patch any further, they decided to go live with the patch without housing, and they were going to fix it and then do another maintenance and bring housing back online. All right, hey, great. You know what? Not ideal, but they found the issue. They took care of it. Good on them, right? Well, that was just the start. So later that night, players who had Tuesday night raids started noticing that they were using their bonus rolls in Mythic Plus dungeons or whatever it was they were doing. And players who were seeking out one specific item decided that what they were going to do is they were going to run that same Mythic Plus over and over again and get multiple rolls. And so they would get multiple items from the dungeon, because remember, the way that Blizzard set it up is when you do your bonus roll, whatever you get from the bonus roll gets marked off the list, so you can't get it again, so that you're not getting duplicates of the same thing over and over and over again. So players were like, cool, I'm going to go run Mythic Plus back to back, do the same one, and try and get the piece that I really want. Except that it didn't work that way. You could get different items, but some players were getting duplicates, and people were getting really upset, and there was a lot of issues, and it became a really big problem. So Blizzard started to look into it. We didn't get an announcement from Blizzard until later the next day. So this was almost 8 o'clock in the evening on Wednesday. But, they found the player housing bug right away, so give them credit for that. Anyway, so they started looking into it. Meanwhile, they figured out what was wrong with player housing. They fixed it. They brought it back up with maintenance. And so that came back online on Wednesday. So while this was all going on, Blizzard's trying to figure out what's going on with the bonus rolls. And then that comes to light that the decor duels were having an issue, because players that have some ability to track humanoids could just do that to find people who were hiding. So decor duels, one group hides and disguises themselves as decor, and one group seeks, and they seek out the players who are disguised. And it's more than just hide and seek, because you hide, and when nobody's looking, you get up and you run somewhere else and you hide in a different thing. So it's also a game of memory to try and remember, was that vase there before? I don't remember. So there was, it seems like it's probably fun, but what happened was hunters, druids, and other players with different buffs on them found that they could just track humanoids and find the players that were hiding. So like, oh, you're right there, I see you. Boop. And since you could spam the buff that allows you to find players, it was really easy to win if you were the seeking team. So that was frustrating a lot of people who were trying to go and do something for fun, right? This isn't like, hey, I want loot, I'm trying to get my character bis, whatever. Let's just go have a good time, okay? I'm frustrated about the bonus rolls. I can't go to my house because it's down. I'm going to go do a decor duel. And also bugged. So at this point, so we've got 3 now, okay? So by this point, people were starting to get upset. So, like I said, Blizzard was investigating the bonus rolls, and there was bugs in the raids. There was a lot of things going on, and players were really frustrated. So, after Blizzard fixed the housing issue, they started looking, or like I said, they were going through the bonus rolls. They finally figured out what was going on. So what they said was, Kyvax posted on Thursday, hello, we wanted to follow up on our previous post about issues we encountered with the new Voidforge bonus roll system. The Voidforge system is a brand new system using new tech that enables players to earn their desired myth track gear using a bonus roll currency called Nebulous Void Cores to improve the player experience of gearing during Season 1 of Midnight. what happened. So this is the what. We tested the system on our internal environment to make sure it was working as intended and fix issues, but there was a subtle bug we missed, and we can now see was the result of a limitation in our internal test environment. This new bonus roll system is intended to work like this. Every time you use your Nebulous Void Core on an additional piece of endgame loot, whether it is in Mythic Plus dungeons, raids, Bountiful Delves, or Prey, it saves a record of the piece of loot and checks it off a list tied to your character, so that you shouldn't receive the same piece of loot again. After we launched 12.0.5, and before we fixed the bug, when players queued with other players into Mythic Plus dungeons, Bountiful Delves, or raids, it was possible for the roll data to sometimes save to the wrong database, leading to duplicate rolls. How could that happen? Okay, first is the what, now it's the how. There are some limited differences between our internal realms and the realms you play on. And one of those differences is the number of databases we use to support the live realms. Some of the databases tied to live realms hold all your character data, and this includes the list where the bonus rolls were saved. Functionality we had in place was working as intended for internal environments, but was ultimately the wrong setup for live environments with their multitude of databases. When it became apparent that players were occasionally receiving the same item twice, we made it a top priority to fix the issue, and we got the system working as intended on live realms at 8:05 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday, April 22nd. So they fixed it Wednesday. They announced this Thursday. What's next? We really want to make this right the best we can. So we're going to refund every Nebulous Void Core that was spent before we fixed the issue. We're identifying every player character who spent a Nebulous Void Core before the fix, and in the next day or so, we will grant them back to you in-game. We want to get players who were affected by the bug back on track, and we want to help players who spent their tokens before the fix to mitigate the possibility of further duplicate rolls of the loot they received. And this is the kicker. How can there be further duplicate rolls? For example, let's look at Jay the Mistweaver Monk, who spent 2 Nebulous Void Cores in Pit of Sauron and received Flayer's Black Belt and Shaggy Worm Leather Leggings through the bonus roll system before the bug was fixed. Jay's bonus rolls may or may not have been properly checked off the list in the database prior to the fix. So the next time he goes into Pit of Sauron and tries to use his bonus roll, he may receive new items, or he may receive the belt or leggings again. Since the system is now working as intended, these new rolls will be saved to the checklist properly. So duplicates of items rolled on after the fix are not possible. So what if I didn't spend my Nebulous Void Cores on bonus rolls? If you did not spend any of your Void Cores before the fix, any bonus roll you now make will properly be accounted for and checked off the list. You will not be at risk for any duplicate rolls. So the reason why I'm laughing is because I've seen this happen real time, where you go and you're doing stuff on a test environment and you go, everything works. You go to live and you go, it just broke. Why did it break? Turns out the configurations between test and live are different. And this isn't always the case. Sometimes test and live are exactly the same. Sometimes there is a difference. Like in the case here, there's more databases in live than there are in the Blizzard's test environment, which means that, and I don't know the inner workings of it, but I'm assuming that there was some way that it saved to a database and that database was numbered. And so if players had certain information that was available to them and they had multiple databases available, it went to the wrong numbered database, which means that the bonus roll saved in some random location that was not helpful to anyone in preventing a duplicate item. Now, Blizzard realized how badly they fucked up. Okay. This isn't like, housing had a bug and we disabled it before launch so that, no. And this isn't even about the loot. This is about the loss of confidence that players had with Blizzard, essentially, not just with the rollout, but Blizzard in general. Now, here's how Blizzard decided they wanted to try and fix this. First of all, they did say they were refunding the Void Cores, which, great. Still don't know how that's going to work in terms of what if you got loot? Does it mean you just get to get more loot? Did they take the loot back? What if you already got what you wanted? Now they can take it back. There's all sorts of weird things. I think everything is kind of settled down now, but still, it feels terrible for everyone involved. So here's the Here's the statement from Blizzard that they released. This is later that day, April 23rd. The 12.0.5 patch launch was not up to our standards, and we know this disrupted your time and caused justified frustration. The team has been working around the clock since launch to stabilize the game and fix the biggest issues players were hitting right away. See our hotfix updates and our post on the bonus roll issue. The team is taking lessons learned from this launch to help ensure this doesn't happen again. We will also work harder to communicate openly, early, and often when a launch doesn't go as expected. The known issues we're working on, fixes as they roll out, and any other information that would be useful to our community as problems are worked on and solved. We care deeply about this game, and we play it right alongside you. We will do better. Thank you for sticking with us, the World of Warcraft team. And of course, players were overjoyed and ultimately forgiving of Blizzard. No, everybody was pissed. To steal the line from Taliesin, it was a shit show, obviously. Yeah, it didn't go well. It was not well received. And here's the problem that I have with all of this. First of all, if you're developing tech, you have to do it on a duplicate of the live system, right? Now, I know from working in IT that if I said, hey, I need to create a duplicate enterprise that's just like this one, but in a test environment so I can test things out as they would be on live, management is going to laugh in my face because it's already costing millions of dollars to run our environment. So, all right. So then what's the other option? Well, you have to try and emulate live the best you can in test, which is really hard to do. It's a very difficult thing to do. So that's why you have QA testers. You have people who are able to go and test these things and do it in a way that simulates what the player will do. The problem with that is that you can't do that in a live service game because even if Blizzard had QA testers, which by the way, they did fire like 2,000 QA testers 2 years ago, whenever it was. But even if they had those people on payroll still, it's really hard to do that because either A, you're doing all your QA testing in the test environment, which we already saw was flawed, or B, you're doing QA testing in live, which means you're scrambling to try and get things up and tested before players figure out that they're broken, which also is not ideal. You want to have everything fixed first and then upload. So what is the solution? I don't know. There's really not a good one. The correct solution long-term is for Blizzard to rebuild the game. And I'm not kidding when I say that. Look, it's just going to get harder and harder to maintain WoW. And Blizzard has already gotten rid of so many people. This isn't like, oh my God, they're spending so much money they've cleaned that department out. Operations, QA testing, development, even these things are all tight. The belts have all been tightened because they just don't have the money available to them. They're making money hand over fist. They're making money. That money's going up the chain. They're owned by Microsoft. So where do you think that money's going? They have to show a certain number of percentage of profit. And so, or profit increase. So even if they do well, they have to do even better the next time. And that's the state of modern business, especially in America. But it does work that way in other parts of the world as well. So is there an actual solution for this? I don't think so. I think it's just Blizzard has to be more careful. They have to do their testing. They have to be careful. They have to make sure that they don't make assumptions based on what should be the case. One thing that I've found is that if you rely on things, like for example, when I'm doing IT and I'm developing something or I'm testing something, you can make an assumption. You can say, all right, hit this and then do this one next. Well, that only works if that is guaranteed to be the next one. But if it's not, then it's going to do something else next, which is going to cause a problem. Like I said, if I had a database that I was writing to and I said, okay, write to this database, and then that database ended up in a different place. Well, if I named the database and it wrote to that named database, that's fine. But if that database was just, hey, write to the database that's in this location, well, that's also not going to work. So I don't know how Blizzard did it, how they constructed their test or their test environment. I don't know. But it seems to me like they took some shortcuts in this process. And those shortcuts bit them in the ass. And I'll tell you right now, having done this for many years, shortcuts will always bite you in the ass. I'm going to give you guys tell you a little story. Okay. Story time. Back when Denethar was in his 20s, I worked as a system administrator at an insurance company. It was probably 28, 29. Maybe I was 30 already. I don't know. I worked for an insurance company, which, whatever. But one of the things that I had to do is we had this software that I forget which software it was, but basically it was it encrypted USB keys. So when you plug a USB key in, it's going to encrypt it or block it outright. So no problem. We got to deploy this software to all of these computers. Okay. So I set everything up. I programmed, here's how to deploy this. We're going to install it on all of these computers. It needs a reboot, but that's okay. We've already told our end users that there's going to be a reboot involved. So when you deploy software like that across the enterprise, you have to target a group of machines. You can't just say, deploy it and it knows where to go. You have to tell it where to go. So in this case, I said, all right, go to all of the machines, all of the computers that are in this collection of computers. And what I did was I took a collection that I had used previously, and I modified the criteria of it to say, oh, only find machines that have, I think it was Windows 7 at the time. Yeah, it's probably Windows 7. Any machine that has Windows 7. So I wrote the criteria in, I programmed it all in, and I set it to go. I didn't look to see what I had programmed in first, and I missed one variable in there. And so it said, find all the machines that are Windows 7 or anything else. So that collection populated with every single computer in the environment, including all of our servers. So it deployed the software to every computer, including all the servers, which also forced every single server in the environment to reboot at one time. It was not pretty. I had the server guys cursing my name for months after that. But it all came down to one thing, which is I made an assumption and I was lazy. I created the collection and I said, yeah, this. And I didn't check it. I attached it to the deployment without checking the list of machines that came back. If I had checked it first, I would have said, hey, what are all these servers doing on here? I'm expecting around 5,000 machines and there's 6,500. What's going on? Or whatever. I could have figured it out at that moment, but I didn't because I was doing it fast and I was not paying attention correctly. And that's what happens when you make assumptions, when you take shortcuts, when you do things the fast way. And I guarantee you that when they did this testing, they probably had an afternoon to test it. Maybe there was an hour where they were like, okay, test this. All right, you got a different one. All right, cool. All right, this one here, run it 10 times. You can't get that one again. No. Okay, everything's tested. We're good. They didn't. Again, I don't know exactly how they did it, but if they had been validating everything, every step along the way, maybe there was something they could have found. Maybe there was something that they could have identified during that process that they would have gone, hey, this isn't working the way that we think it should. Regardless, it happened. They fixed it. It's now fixed. But what a debacle for Blizzard. When I saw everything going on, I thought, how bad are things there? There's all this conversation about how they're not forcing people to work overtime, and they're not, trying to run people's lives, and they're giving people the benefit of the doubt. And it's like, I understand that. And I think that's fantastic. You should always pay attention. Every company should pay attention to work-life balance. It's huge. And the companies that don't are burning their people out. However, work-life balance includes more than just letting you end your day at a certain time or not calling you on your day off. It also requires the company to provide adequate number of people to do the proper testing, allowing adequate time to do the proper testing. If Blizzard said, for example, all right, we need this all to be done because we've already announced the date, so you guys have, an afternoon to do all this testing, that might not be enough time. Obviously, that was the case here. There wasn't enough time. They would have found it if they had gone through and checked everything, but they didn't because they were in a time crunch. We're assuming here. I don't know. But I can only tell you what I've seen from my experience, and that's anytime somebody does something quickly, you're increasing your risk of having it become a disaster. And this is exactly what happened here. It became a disaster. So hopefully this is something that they learn a lesson from. I think Blizzard could use more DevOps people. I think Blizzard could use more operations people. I think Blizzard could use quality testers. I think that they need these people in order to make this game work. We're paying not just with our subscriptions, but with our Blizzard store purchases, with our Blizzard gear purchases, with, every time somebody buys a collector's edition, or we're paying for this over and over and over again. Expansion launches, we're paying for it. And while, yes, Blizzard wants to make a profit, and Microsoft is demanding profit increases from Blizzard, at some point, you have to remember that you're providing a service to a client and not just printing money. This is not acceptable. And so for me, I'm going to be real. I'm never going to stop playing WoW because I don't like Blizzard's business practices. But I feel like if we don't call them out on it, at the very least, then we really have no cause to complain. So we'll see how it goes in the future. But that was rough. All right, let's move on to what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. The bonus event for this week is the World Quest bonus event. You can get the Sign of the Emissary buff. Reputation gains from World Quest increase by 50%. You can pick up the quest The World Awaits from Archmage Aethys Sunreaver and Silvermoon to complete 10 world quests, and you'll be rewarded with 2,500 renown reputation with the faction of your choice. That's a really good one. You basically get a free renown increase on whoever you want. So that's huge. 10 world quests is a lot, but you should be able to knock that out in an afternoon, or do 5 one day and then 5 another day. It's fine. There's plenty of world quests. So the one thing that I miss is there's no dragon riding quests. Like, come on, Blizzard, what are you doing? The PvP brawl for the week is Deep 6. Deep 6 pits teams of 6 players against each other in 3 iconic battlegrounds: Warsong Gulch, Silver Shard Mines, and the Temple of Kop-Magoo. Each battleground offers a little variation on the traditional format, such as flags are a bit closer in Warsong Gulch, less cards to keep track of in Silver Shard Mines, and only 2 orbs within the Temple of Kop-Magoo. When you zone in, you'll get the quest Something Different to win a PvP brawl, and you'll be rewarded with Conquest, Honor, and Marks of Honor. So there you go. Children's Week is starting today, actually, as I record this. So by the time you hear it, it'll be Tuesday or later, and Children's Week will be in full swing. And actually, I should start mentioning this, but these holidays, like Children's Week, for example, is also live in TBC Anniversary and Mr. Pandaria Classic. So it's not like this is limited to retail or Modern WoW. But the new thing in Children's Week this year is unique to Modern WoW. So when you go to Children's Week, you do the quest line. At the end, you get to pick a pet. And if you don't pick a pet, then or if you've already got all the pets, you'll be able to get a well-loved figurine. And that well-loved figurine can be traded to Geppetto Joybuzz for a nap mat, which is a new toy which you can use to lay down and take a nap. So it says, despite the war in Silvermoon, there are no new orphans this year, but there is a new nap mat toy, which summons an interactable mat that players can use to catch a quick snooze. The additional reward can be purchased from Geppetto Joybuzz for the price of one Wella figurine, acquired in lieu of choosing a companion pet upon completing orphan quest lines. So there you go. You've got all the pets, and you're like, this is dumb. I don't want to do Children's Week anymore. There's a new toy for you, which I think, honestly, should be housing decor, but whatever. It's what do I know? Yeah, and Children's Week, it's always fun. The holiday event also coming up is Volunteer Guard Day. So this is on April 28th. Today, the denizens of Azeroth and Draenor take time to celebrate the hard work that their guards perform, /salute a guard to show you care. It's just, you become a guard. There's a few quests that you can do, and it really gives you nothing other than something interesting to do for a few minutes. So check out Volunteer Guard Day. I think it's Stormwind and Orgrimmar, and then I guess at your garrison, or however that works. So, and then finally, the Darkmoon Fair is in town. Darkmoon Fair will be arriving on May 3rd, and it will last until May 9th, which is Sunday through Saturday. Yeah, Darkmoon Fair is always a great time. It's especially important during this first few months of midnight to get your skill and knowledge point increases for your professions. So if nothing else, if you're not worried about your rep, you're not worried about leveling up an alt, go do your professions at the Darkmoon Fair. You will be grateful for the extra knowledge points. Unless you don't care about professions, in which case, whatever. I don't care. So there you go. That's what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. We're going to move on now to the main topic of the week. Because I can't talk about patch 12.0.5 anymore. It's so frustrating. But all right, we're moving on.
It's time for the main topic of the week.
Okay, so here's the deal. I started this whole process because I was I've been reading on Reddit a lot. People saying things like, oh, TBC phase 1 is so short, or TBC phase 1 is too long, or whatever. A little bit of both. People saying, well, why don't we make phase 2 longer, and then we give us pre-nerf, and then you can switch it to post-nerf after a certain point in time. Just a lot of posts on Reddit from people who don't know what they're actually talking about, and that's fine. That's what it's for. It's basically your college dorm. You can hang out and be like, wouldn't it be cool if Blizzard just did this? But the reality is no one knows what Blizzard's plans are even for the immediate future. I mean, we've got phase 2 coming in 2 weeks, and we still don't know, are the raids post nerf? Are the raids pre-nerf? How are things going to work? Are there going to be badges dropping from Karazhan bosses? Blizzard has given us almost no information on this stuff, and that's why I kind of am taking the stance of, like, is Blizzard actively trying to kill these versions of Classic, Miss Pandaria and the Burning Crusade? And so I started thinking about that, because I've already talked about the lack of communication from Blizzard on what their plans are for Classic going forward, and it's already really frustrating that we're at this point, because quite honestly, I think that Blizzard has a fairly loyal audience when it comes to Classic, and not just vanilla Classic, but alternate versions of the game. Let's say that there's always going to be someone somewhere who's like, I really loved WoW, I really loved Cataclysm, that was my favorite expansion, I really want to play that all the time. And so it got me thinking about where we are in terms of the timeline for Classic and what Blizzard's intentions are. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized there's a pattern involving here. And I'm not the first person to think of this, but this is the first time that I'm going through and really putting these pieces together. So I'll go through it, and then you can call me a moron in the comments if you want. That's fine. So let's set the Wayback Machine to 2023. Hardcore WoW is going great. People are getting ready for BlizzCon. The Wrath of the Lich King Phase 4 just launched. That's Icecrown Citadel. Players are killing Arthas as they get ready to go to BlizzCon. So BlizzCon 2023, where Blizzard does their big announcement. And what are we getting for World of Warcraft? Well, at least as far as Classic goes, we're getting Season of Discovery and Cataclysm Classic. So, yeah, players were a little surprised. Season of Discovery caught everyone by shock. Obviously, a lot of people were expecting Cataclysm. Whether or not they wanted it is not the point. The big announcement that year was, of course, the World Soul Saga and the War Within. But as far as Classic goes, that's what we got. So the big surprise, though, from Season of Discovery was that it was going to launch pretty much right away. November 30th saw the launch of Season of Discovery. That took us to level 25, Black Fathoms Deeps, all that. So Blizzard is continuing on with Classic. We got Wrath of the Lich King Phase 5 in January of 2024, which was the Ruby Sanctum patch. Season of Discovery continued on. We got level 40 and Nomergon in February of 2024, and then level 50 in Sunken Temple in April of 2024. So everything's just kind of rolling. Everything's happening. We got the pre-patch for Cataclysm at the end of April. The launch of Cataclysm on May 20th, which, I don't like Cataclysm, but I'll be the first to admit it. There was a lot of people playing Cataclysm back in the day, or Cataclysm Classic, I should say. Should be clear here. We're not talking just about Cataclysm. There was a lot of people playing Cataclysm too, but the numbers for Cataclysm were pretty good. First week of raiding. This is the raiding population only, not the total number of people playing, but just the number of people competing in raids and arenas. So first week of raid availability. So this is May 20th through June 3rd. 209,000. The next week was 298,000, 317,000, 316,000, 301,000, and so on. So pretty good numbers. I think Blizzard was pleased with those numbers. The problem comes in where you start to look at the numbers and you watch how they progressed. By the time we got to Phase 3 of Cataclysm, which was everyone's favorite raid, Firelands from Cataclysm, the numbers were down to the low 100,000s. So not terrible, but still not as high as they were at the launch. So obviously there's a dip, and Blizzard noticed that. Meanwhile, Season of Discovery had launched with huge numbers in November. When Phase 1 launched and players had to level to 25 and then go into Black Fathom Deeps, people were leveling alts. People were bringing their friends over. Hey, you only have to get to level 25. It's quick. There were, at its peak, Season of Discovery had 496,000 raiding characters, which is a lot. This was in Phase 1. But by the time we got to Phase 4, which was the level 60 Molten Core, the numbers had dropped pretty substantially. We were down into the about high 70,000s of players. Still a lot, still a good, healthy number for a seasonal server, but obviously not at what its height was. So Season of Discovery and Cataclysm continued on throughout 2024. At the end of 2024, in November, we had the Warcraft Direct, which was the anniversary celebration for Warcraft 30, 30 years of Warcraft, 20 years of World of Warcraft. It was a big celebration. It was a big deal. Everybody was super excited about it. That's when Blizzard announced the expected announcement of Mists of Pandaria Classic, and everyone went, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But they also announced fresh Classic servers, the anniversary servers. And Blizzard said at the time, these servers are going to go to Burning Crusade. That was part of the announcement. So, okay, so we're cool. So we got this. So this is November 2024. The Classic Anniversary servers launched a week later, November 21st, in addition to Season of Discovery Phase 6, which was the Encourage phase. And I've said this before on the show, and I will continue to say it. AQ is the downfall of Classic. If you have a target point and you're like, here's where Classic starts to get bad, it's Encourage. Encourage is much harder than anything previous, especially the trash. And then you go into Naxxramas, which, as fun as Naxxramas is, it's hard. It's really hard. You make a mistake, dead. You don't understand the mechanic perfectly, dead. Your network hiccups a little bit during the Heigen dance, dead. So Classic shifts because Blackwing Lair and Zul'Grub, that's the end of the accessible part of Classic. Everything after that, and you could still run that stuff if you're playing on a Classic server, any Classic server. When Blackwing Lair and Zul'Grub is out, you're having fun, and then it gets to AQ. Yeah, most of the big guilds move on to AQ, but you can still do Blackwing Lair. It's not like it's not useful. That season or that tier 2 gear is still really good. So anyway, we have Encourage launched the same day as the Classic Anniversary servers launched. Players were very excited because they thought, wow, it's a new chance to have fresh servers. Here's where things get a little weird, though. So Blizzard announced that right after Firelands launched. Dragon Soul, obviously a very unpopular raid in Cataclysm, launched in January. Classic Anniversary was progressing pretty quickly. By March, we were already in Blackwing Lair. Naxxramas came out on Season of Discovery in January. So things were moving along. But what happened next is really interesting. So with Naxxramas, you had the Karazhan Crypts dungeon, which was something that they had developed. But most of the development work for Season of Discovery was done. Everything else had been done. The only thing that was left that was new and interesting was the Scarlet Enclave raid. And that came out in April of 2025. And so basically, after that happened, Blizzard was done with Season of Discovery. They made an announcement May of 2025 saying, we're not going to develop Season of Discovery anymore because we're moving all the developers from Season of Discovery onto a new, undisclosed Classic WoW project, which we've all taken to be assumed to be Classic Plus. So this was in May. Now, let's take stock of where we are. Cataclysm is in Dragon Soul, the worst raid of the expansion. And yes, people still played it and people still had fun, but it was the worst raid of the expansion. By this point, the populations had dwindled substantially. So Cataclysm was in the low 100,000 still. Season of Discovery was in the high 60,000s, low 70,000. So everything had basically plateaued. Then Blizzard made the announcement saying they were going to cut off development of Season of Discovery, and the numbers plummeted. They went from the 75,819 the first week of May to the first week of July, they were at 12,000. So you fell off that fast, that hard, that fast. I think Blizzard did that intentionally. They wanted to clear out Season of Discovery because they didn't want to have to do massive amounts of support for it. They didn't want players to continue on playing it thinking, oh, is this going to merge into Classic Plus? Is this going to become Classic Plus? Are we going to get new content after Scarlet Enclave? Scarlet Enclave, as great as it was and however much development time it took, was kind of an afterthought. Blizzard had talked about doing it. They hadn't actually developed it. So they threw it together real quick and they put it out there and they said, here you go, because they wanted to. It was a love letter to the Season of Discovery community, but it wasn't anything other than that. It didn't take a whole lot of development. It was the final thing that they did. So all of the breadcrumbs, all of the mystery surrounding Season of Discovery, the dark figure that gave us all those quest lines, those all went unanswered because Blizzard basically just cut the legs out of it and said, yeah, that's it, we're done. Once Classic moved into Mists of Pandaria in July, things got even weirder. So we knew from the roadmap that Blizzard had provided that Mists of Pandaria was gonna move on through its phases. We knew from the roadmap that Blizzard had provided that Mists of Pandaria was going to continue on through its phases throughout the end of the year, and then same thing with Classic Anniversary was going to merge into Burning Crusade. This is what we knew. Then we got the State of Azeroth announcement. This was in January of 2026, where we got that little Classic Plus tease that everyone hated, which I thought was hilarious, but everyone hated it. But we had no information about what was coming after Mists of Pandaria. We got no information about what's coming after the Burning Crusade Anniversary. We're assuming that we're going to get an announcement at BlizzCon. We're assuming. We still don't even know if that's going to be the case. We got the roadmap for 2026, which led us into the end of Mists of Pandaria and the end of the Burning Crusade. That's it. It showed us all the way through the Burning Crusade this year. We're not moving on phase 4 or phase 5 or whatever we're going to call it. The Sunwell Plateau, that is not coming next year. That is coming this year before the end of the year. I would assume probably somewhere between Thanksgiving and Christmas, if I had to guess. That's more than likely what's going to happen. So why am I bringing all this up? What does it all mean? Well, here's the summary I'm taking away from all this. Blizzard was developing Season of Discovery and Cataclysm Classic at the same time. They were working on both of those, and I honestly believe Blizzard thought that Cataclysm was going to be popular. It was going to get Wrath of the Lich King like numbers, and players were going to continue on. And I truly believe Blizzard intended to go all the way to Legion Classic. I believe that. But as the numbers started to drop and Blizzard realized this wasn't super popular, they cooked up the idea of the anniversary servers, because they said, okay, we're going to end Season of Discovery because all of those people are going to go over to Classic Plus or whatever they're calling it. These players, the players who are playing Season of Discovery, don't want to go to Cataclysm or Mists of Pandaria. They want to play Classic. They want to play Vanilla. And so why don't we give them a Vanilla server to play? So they started Anniversary, and that kicked off. Anniversary is just here to placate us. Okay? Make no mistake. Blizzard dropped that not because they wanted to give us something fun and amazing to do. They dropped that because they were worried that if we didn't have Season of Discovery anymore, we would just leave. So the population slowly transitioned over to Anniversary as Season of Discovery winded down. After Phase 8 of Season of Discovery and the announcement of the end of development for Season of Discovery, you saw a little bit of a spike in Anniversary, but not a huge one. But the spike that really changed things was the number of people who are raiding in the Burning Crusade versus who are raiding in Vanilla. You could see that a lot of people were kind of in holding mode. They were in this waiting mode to see, like, well, what am I going to play? Because Season of Discovery is closed. I don't want to play Mists of Pandaria, but I don't know what else to do. So they came to Classic. A lot of people just leveled up and didn't raid in Classic because they were like, I just did that. I don't want to do it again. Which is why the numbers for Classic weren't bigger. There were a lot of people who just leveled up and did PvP, and that was it. Maybe they did a raid here or there, but that was the majority of what they did. So when TBC Anniversary launched, all of those players started playing that instead because that's what they had truly been waiting for, and that's why the population spiked so high. Where we stand right now is that we are looking at Phase 2 of TBC Anniversary. We're looking at Phase 5 of Mists of Pandaria Classic. We don't know anything that's happening beyond Phase 5 for Mists of Pandaria. For all we know, that's it. We have no word on a replacement for Classic, what's going to end up happening to it, where it's going to go. We don't know anything about that. And the last thing that we saw, and I mentioned this last week, is that the Joyous Journeys buff will end when Season of Orgrimmar launches. And on the PTR right now, it's scheduled to end June 2nd, which means that we'll get Siege of Orgrimmar June 2nd, and then it'll be 3 months before we get to BlizzCon. So we'll have 3 months of the final patch of Mists of Pandaria with no information. I think this is intentional. I think Blizzard's plan here is they gave us Anniversary to give us something to do. I think initially maybe it was, we're going to give a fresh server for people to do stuff. But there's a reason why they just announced Burning Crusade and didn't announce Wrath of the Lich King. People are convinced. Reddit, even people in my guild are convinced, no, we're getting Wrath. Blizzard would not leave that money on the table. They will leave the money on the table if they can instead have a bigger table with Classic Plus. And I know some people out there are like, well, I don't want Classic Plus. I want Wrath. That may be the case. But Blizzard is not in the business of giving us whatever we want. They're in the business of giving us things that will get us to spend money. Right? That's the thing here. This isn't about what we want. This is about what we are going to get. And what we're going to get is things that are going to convince us to spend money. Now, you may not spend money on Classic Plus because you're like, Wrath or nothing. Fine. They'll lose one sub. They don't care about losing one sub. They care about losing 500,000 subs. They care about losing the entire Classic population. So, when Blizzard announced Anniversary and announced it going to the Burning Crusade, that was their insurance to say, okay, we're going to push this out for 2 years, and then we'll evaluate where we are. They had already started developing Classic Plus at that point when they launched the Anniversary service. Let's not forget, there was not a whole lot of development in Season of Discovery after Phase 5. Phase 5 was the Blackwing Lair Zolgrub phase. Pretty much everything was all done at that point. Encourage, Naxxramas, yes, we got the Karazhan Crypts, but that was it. Scarlet Enclave. Designing a raid and a dungeon is very different than designing a massive PvP event or, whatever, the Blackrock Mountain thing, all of the different components. Putting in hard modes on some of these bosses, that was easy. That's not hard. That's just scripting. What Blizzard did was they funneled those development resources away from Season of Discovery. And yeah, there were still some people on doing things. Yes, I understand that. But the bulk of them went to Classic Plus, or whatever the Classic Plus, we're just going to call it Classic Plus. They launched the Anniversary to placate us, to give us something to do. They intentionally left it at Burning Crusade because by their calculation, from the time of launch, they said 2 years development. 2 years of development to get Classic Plus off the ground should be enough time. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to go to BlizzCon. They're going to announce Classic Plus, and it's going to end, or it's going to start right after the end of Mists of Pandaria Classic. Now, for the people who are playing the Burning Crusade Anniversary, who really love playing that, oh, I've got my great guild, we're all having so much fun. Burning Crusade Anniversary is going to die. It's going to die as soon as they announce Classic Plus. And I'm telling you right now, Blizzard is not going to have us sit on Siege of Orgrimmar for 6 months while they finish up Classic Plus. It's coming soon. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Classic Plus launch this October after BlizzCon, which means that's going to be before Phase 5 of the Burning Crusade. So are a lot of people going to jump ship? Yeah. Does Blizzard care? No, they don't, because they still have that sub money. But what would happen if they said, okay, Classic Plus is coming and it's going to be here in July of 2027? Okay, that's possible. But what happens then? That means we have over a year of Siege of Orgrimmar with no updates. We have 7 months of Sunwell Plateau with no updates. Okay, what if they decide to go Wrath of the Lich King? So you do Wrath of the Lich King. Now, instead, you have another year of your Classic player base being split, where people are on Wrath, people are on Classic Plus. It's this weird thing. They want everything else to end so they can focus all their energy on one product, Classic Plus. So what's going to happen to all these other versions of the game? You've got Progression Classic, you've got Anniversary, you got Hardcore, you got Season of Discovery still sitting there. Season of Mastery is the only version of WoW to ever truly just go away. So what's going to happen? Well, there's a couple of possibilities. They've talked about converting all of the classic characters to modern WoW, which would be kind of weird. And I think that that's probably the least desirable outcome. Actually, no, the least desirable outcome is they just close the servers and you can't play anymore. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to have you transfer your characters retail. There's too many reasons why that would be problematic. Other options include things like they could create a era server for each of the different expansions. TBC era, Wrath era, Kata, Mop. We already have Classic era. And you could choose where you want your character to retire. All right, I've got my character and they're level 90 and I want them to live in Wrath of the Lich King forever. Well, that also brings some problems because scaling a character down is not something Blizzard has ever really done. There are too many variables in there to just scale people to a different version of the game. Achievements, explorations, when did you get that loot? There's a lot that goes into your character, and to remove things. So if you scale a character up, if you say, I have a Wrath character and I'm going to transfer them to Miss Pandaria, that's easy. You just give them some green gear and there you go. You're done. But to go backwards, how do you know what to remove? That's where it starts to get difficult. Things like weapon skill. If you're going back to Wrath of the Lich King, you need weapon skill. So how do you determine what somebody's weapon skill should be? Do we just give everyone, whatever, 450 or whatever it is? That's not really an ideal solution either. The thing that I came up with, and I don't think this is a perfect solution by any stretch, but the thing that I came up with was take your Mist of Pandaria character and leave them in Mist of Pandaria, but create permanent remix modes of all of the expansions so far. So you can, and we're not talking like a temporary phased rollout like we got with Legion or even Mist of Pandaria remix. I'm talking permanent remix modes. Everything's fully launched. You can go into Wrath remix, do all your Wrath raids, do all your Wrath content. Yeah, you're going to have Mist of Pandaria talents, and things are just going to scale. And so it's not perfect, but it's doable. Blizzard already has the remix technology. We know that they know how to use it. So, and we know that it works in different expansions because we had one remix in Dragonflight and then we had another remix in The War Within. So if they gave us classic remix versions for all of the, even classic, screw classic era, which, okay, fine. You can play on classic era, or your Mist of Pandaria character can go to any remix, and you're not limited to one. So you can go to Wrath of the Lich King remix, and you can play that for a while with your friends, and then everyone goes, you know what, we should go check out TBC remix. Everyone moves over, you go talk to Sindorme or whoever, and you say, hey, I want to check out, what it was like when Outland was being explored. You just transfer over there. I think that's going to be the best option, honestly, because transferring to retail, closing the servers, or trying to relocate characters onto a different version of the game, I think it's going to be too much. We already saw Blizzard struggle with the patch 12.0.5 launch. So we know that they're not at a good place when it comes to developing new technology. So you have your character, they'll be permanently in Mist of Pandaria, but they won't be limited to that content because you'll be able to go run old content and go get the mount you always wanted. Go get the gear you always wanted. You have all of the different components in Mist of Pandaria for a modern version of the game. Yeah, okay. So maybe you clean some things up. Maybe you modify some of the way that things work in Mist of Pandaria. You turn Mist of Pandaria into a remix mode as well. And then you just let everyone just live there. Now, yeah, there's some problems with that. Some people might say, but I want era servers for all of the different versions of the game. I get that, but Blizzard doesn't want to run era servers for all the different versions of the game. That means they have to maintain all of those different code bases. Every single one has to be maintained separately. So that's kind of a hassle. And I don't think they have it in them. So, yeah, that's what I think they should do. I don't know what Blizzard's actually going to do. But I think that they are intentionally withholding information on these versions, not just because of trying to maintain the surprise. Oh, it's a big surprise. But also, I think they're actively trying to kill Classic. I think they are. I think they're happy that people are enjoying TBC Anniversary, but I don't think they really care. I think ultimately they don't care if it's successful or not. And if the population drops by half, as long as they have enough people going into BlizzCon, which is really what their goal is, and they can funnel those people into Classic Plus instead, yeah, there will be some people that say, no, I want to finish out the Burning Crusade, and they can. But you're not going anywhere after that. I think it's going to become a permanent TBC era server, and then you're going to have remix versions of every other expansion, including vanilla, in the Progression Classic and Mists of Pandaria Classic. And I've said before, the combat system in Mists of Pandaria is my favorite because it's the right mix of classic and modern. And honestly, I think that would be a great solution. You could go play those characters and do whatever you want. And I'll tell you what, right now, if you were playing Wrath Classic and you didn't play Cataclysm, you didn't play Mists of Pandaria, guess what? You could level up really fast in Remix. This is a great way to level up some alts, get in there. It keeps that version of the game alive without Blizzard having to do a ton of maintenance. Because once you put all the Remix modes in, that's it. It's done. You don't have to touch that anymore. It's like Classic Era. You don't have to touch it anymore. It's done. You can just go. So, I don't know. I think that's what we're heading into, and I think that's why Blizzard has been so careful not to say a word about what's coming for Classic after TBC and MOP. But I think that's what it is. I think that they're intentionally trying to close these down. TBC will turn into era servers. Mists of Pandaria will turn into remix servers, and we'll all be expected to play Classic Plus or live on an era server somewhere. And that's Blizzard's big plan, because they don't want to keep maintaining multiple versions of the game. They tried out Season of Discovery. People liked it. They went, ooh, we're not really prepared to do this long term. So they had to go back to the drawing board, and they did. And so that's why the beginning of Season of Discovery feels so crazy, and the end of Season of Discovery feels a lot more formulaic, because they didn't really have a plan for what they were going to do. They were just throwing stuff at the wall, see what sticks. I truly think that they were initially planning to go all the way to Legion with Classic, or maybe even continue on from there. I don't think they had a long-term goal or plan. I think they were just flying by the seat of their pants. And when the population started to dwindle, they realized this is only going to get worse, because we're going to go from Cata, where the population has dropped by 400,000 or 500,000 from the Wrath of the Lich King heyday in 2022-23, to at the end of Cataclysm, it was barely, the raiding population was in the low 100,000s. Now, Mists of Pandaria Classic is in the 50,000s. Burning Crusade Anniversary is in the 300,000s, but that number is going to drop. As the game gets harder, fewer people are going to raid. I don't care if it's post-nerf. It's going to get harder, and people aren't going to want to do it. They're going to go, yeah, this is too much. It's not what I asked for. And they'll move on. And so by the time we get to Sunwell, it will just be the hardcore people playing, not hardcore. I hate that they called it hardcore. The sweaty players will be playing Burning Crusade, and that'll be that. And well, everyone else will move to Classic Plus. So, I mean, I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, and Blizzard's going to do something completely different. Fine, that may very well be the case. But this is. I think this is what we're looking at, and I suspect we will have a Classic Plus client by the end of the year, or at the very least, at the very beginning of next year. So we'll see how it goes. Breaking news, this just in. Blizzard has announced that the Phase 2 raids, the Serpent Shrine Cavern and Tempest Keep, will be using the post-nerf tuning, which means they will be slightly easier. It's still going to be difficult. This is not... These raids aren't easy in any way, but there will be raid testing on the PTR Friday, May 1st through Sunday, May 3rd. I might try and get on there and get in some of this testing before I have to lead my raid group through there. But they're going to be post nerf. So anybody who was worried about, what if Blizzard does pre nerf? What are we going to do? Nope. They're smart enough to realize that would also chase people away. And again, like I said earlier, they just want that subscription money. So the other change that they're doing is they're putting in an increase in the number of tokens that you get from all of the bosses. So instead of getting 2 tokens for tier pieces, you're going to get 3 tokens for tier pieces. So that'll help people gearing up, especially people who need their set pieces. But yeah, I saw that come in right as I was finishing up the podcast. So I figured I'd go ahead and throw that in just so that you had that info. That's going to wrap up our show for today. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. I really do appreciate it. It is always a pleasure and a privilege for me to get on this microphone and speak to you. I do want to say this was a really fun episode to record because I love getting on and just talking about I don't want to say conspiracy theories because it's not really conspiracy theories, but the ideas of people and trying to think of what's coming next, even though we have really no idea. It's like the people who are trying to figure out which characters are going to appear in the next Avengers movie. We don't know. We only know what they tell us. So is Spider-Man going to be in there? Who knows? Anyway, if you're enjoying the show and you'd like to help us out, there's a couple different ways you can do that. You could consider leaving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Those really help out the distribution and help out with the metrics. So if you are so inclined, we'd be very grateful. And if you are willing to leave a review or a comment on Spotify or review on Apple Podcasts, I will read it on the air. We do have 2 new reviews that I wanted to get through here. The first one is this is from Apple Podcasts. This is from Rak Rizek. He says, Denethar has a great outlook on the game. Azeroth United has quickly become a show I enjoy every week for both information on classic and retail WoW, as well as thoughtful insight to the current events going on within them. Denethar does a great job at putting all the info out there, along with some great analysis on it all. I look forward to his show every week. Thank you so much. It was very kind. Because I try, and sometimes I feel like I just ramble too much, but it's nice to see a kind comment like that. On the flip side, we have a I don't want to say a mean comment, but it wasn't super nice. So this was on the lore deep dive on the March on Quel'Danas episode, which we did. So this is Austin, who says, brother, about 36 minutes of just straight blabbering before getting to what I think is finally the topic. Thanks. Thanks for listening. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot that people listen, even if you don't actually enjoy the show, but you listened. You know what? I'm glad you tried it. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. But you did give it a shot, and I do really appreciate that. So thanks for the comments. And you know what? If you give me another chance, maybe I'll say something interesting. It's a podcast, so I'm not always going to stick to one topic. I'm going to bounce all over the place. I'm going to do the news. I'm going to talk about what I did last week on WoW. If you want just the one thing, there are timestamps in the show notes, or if you're watching it on YouTube or Spotify or some of the other podcast apps, you'll be able to just jump to one section or another if you really don't want to hear the other stuff. So it's up to you. But like I said, thank you for listening and giving it a chance. I do appreciate it. Right. And speaking of which, YouTube, yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can help us out by giving us a like and a comment and a subscribe. That YouTube algorithm is wacky AF, so who knows? Maybe it won't help at all. I don't know. But if it does help, then, I think that would be cool. But, every now and then I try and do some shorts, but, man, the shorts just, I don't know. I think it's throwing off my algorithm, to be honest. So I might start a shorts channel and just upload shorts there. And if you want to see, little clips from the show and get them into circulation, I'll do that. I have no idea. But if I do that, I'll put a little thing in the notes, and you guys can find the new channel or whatever. But yeah, there you go. The final way that you can help us out is by considering joining our Patreon. Patreon is people where people can donate their IRL money to help out with the production costs of the show. As I've said many times before, I appreciate people just listening, and the fact that people also want to help me out monetarily is huge to me. That means so much. And there's 3 different tiers of Patreon that you can join. You can get there by going to patreon.com/Azeroth United, or you can go to our website, AzerothUnitedPod.com. 3 different tiers of Patreon members are the free tier, which you can just get on there and see what's going on. There's the standard tier, which is $1, and then there's the friend of the show tier, which is $3. And that's it. if you want to join, I'm happy to see you join. If you don't, you just want to listen to the show, like I said, Azeroth United will always be free. I will never charge you to listen to an episode or anything like that. I did, however, succumb to my podcast provider because they sent me a message saying, hey, you can put ads at the end of your episode, so it won't disturb your listeners, but it'll still make you some ad revenue money. Not as much as if you put them in the middle or the beginning of your episode, but it'll still make some passive income. So I thought, fine, I'll do that. So if you've heard the ads at the end of an episode, that's why. But anyway, thank you to the Patreon members for joining. And it means so much to me. I do want to thank our friend of the show patrons. That's Stuglife, Thelial, Greybeard, Raven, Azurin, and Agro Management. Thank you all so much for your support. And thank you to all the Patreons. You all definitely help make Azeroth United possible. And I think that's it. Thank you again for listening. I really do appreciate it. Remember to be good to each other out there. It's a real life person. You gotta say that keyboard, and you never know what might be bothering them, or if they had a good day or a bad day, and you can just be nice, be good, be a good person. Maybe the tank is running a little slow in the dungeon, or the healer is having a hard time keeping up. We don't need to fight. We don't need to argue. We can just smile and be patient. And remember, this is a game. We're playing a game. And if you're not having fun, there's no law that says you can't leave, but you don't need to be mean about it. All right. Take care. I love you all, and I'll see you in Azeroth.